My name is Thomas Stimm. I'm working in the domain of security since roughly 20 years, 10 of those with Script. I'm involved in different kinds of topics, for example, providing threat and risk analysis, providing security concepts, system architectures, stuff like this. And in the last years, my scope was more and more shifted towards the topic of software updates and also to the current topic of software update management systems, some regarding to the regulation R156. Moritz, do you like also to spend some words?
Sure. Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Megan, for the introduction. So my name is Moritz Winzlaff. I'm really happy to be talking to you today about the topic of software update management systems and how to handle the impact and build this up at OEMs and suppliers. I've been working in cybersecurity for over 10 years, most of the time with Script, consulting clients worldwide, in Europe, in Asia, in North America, from small specialized suppliers all the way to the top 5 OEMs. My main focus the past couple of years has been on organizational cyber maturity, cybersecurity management systems, information security management systems. And in that role, I'm also Script's business owner for our security consulting services. And yeah, Thomas, please take us away.
Okay, so today's focus is the UN regulation R156 regarding software update and software update management system. Before coming to this, I'd like to start with a short motivation. We will cover the topic of over-the-air updates shortly. We will check which related activities are on the market are currently planned, and at the end, Moritz will show us how implement and monitor the systems maturity with our proof service. And as already mentioned, afterwards, you have the possibility to ask and raise questions to us. Okay, I like to start the motivation with a quote of the CEO of GM. And Mary said that she believes that the automotive industry will change more in the next 5 to 10 years than it has done in the last 50 years. And this is actually due to different reasons, but mainly for the connectivity reason. Cars are becoming more and more connected, and automakers see new business opportunities here, new selling points, unique selling points, are providing new features and functions. Those comfort features are more and more adapting and faster adapting by the consumers than expected. So the numbers of connected cars is rising, and nowadays we already see several 100 million cars on the road. On the other side, also technical companies come into the automotive sector, and they play a major role today, and probably will also extend their role in the future. This motivation is somehow mirrored by the press release from the UNECE, and this press release says that the automotive sector is undergoing a transformation towards the digitalization of in-car systems to deliver vehicle optimization, to deliver connectivity with backend, with vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure. All those services provide new interfaces, new attack paths, and zest for cybersecurity risks, since new vulnerabilities are possible. The UNECE tackled those cybersecurity risks by 2 new regulations. Basically, they provide a framework for cybersecurity and a software update, namely is this regulation 155 and 156. And those regulations provide requirements that should be implemented across 4 disciplines, and is the managing of vehicle cybersecurity, securing vehicle by design, the detection and responding to incidents, and today's focus, providing safe and secure updates. Okay, but why is this UN regulation so important? So the UNECE is the World Forum for Harmonization of Vehicle Regulation. And this World Forum passes international agreements, the so-called UN regulations. Nowadays, there are over 100 UN regulations so far, and the international agreements actually affect Europe, Japan, and potentially all countries marked on this map. At the end, to get a type approval, one have to be compliant with those regulations. So this means one have to fulfill the regulations. Okay, let's take a closer look at the current topic, software update and software update management system. So the UN regulation R156 is adopted in June, was adopted in June last year and is in force since February this year. And the regulation applies actually to vehicles permitting software updates of basically all classes. The type approval principle means that the manufacturer will need to demonstrate prior to putting vehicles on the market that they fulfill the requirements. Basically, they have to demonstrate that they have different topics established. So for example, they have to demonstrate that the software update management system, that a software update management system is in place, that the system is certified, and that the application to vehicles on the road is available. They have also to demonstrate that the software update delivery mechanism itself is protected and that the integrity and authenticity of update is ensured. And they have also to demonstrate that so-called software identification numbers, we will cover this topic later in more detail, are protected and are readable from the vehicle. At the end, type approval relevant updates will be only permitted after registration by approval authorities. Taking a closer look to the regulation, one can identify three main topics, and the regulation provides requirement on the software update management system, on the SUM systems of the vehicle manufacturer. Here, the regulation defines processes to be verified at an initial assessment. So, for example, the vehicle manufacturer shall record and store information for each update applied to given vehicles. The regulation also provides requirements for the vehicle functionality with regards to software updates. So, for example, the vehicle shall ensure that preconditions are met before the software update is executed. The vehicle should be able to restore the previous state in case of failures and interruption of the updates. The vehicle has to ensure that sufficient power is available to complete the update process, etc. The third main topic of the regulation are requirements regarding the software identification number, and basically this so-called RxS VIN shall be uniquely identifiable. It should be easy readable in a standardized way and protected against unauthorized modification. So before we consider what a software update management system is, I'd like to spend some words about what are software updates and which of those updates are relevant for type approval at all. So according to the definition of the regulation, software update means a package used to upgrade software to a new version. But this includes also the configuration parameters. And this makes sense as already configuration parameters may have impact on the behavior of a system. But what are type approval relevant updates? So as mentioned, there are above 100 regulations released, and those regulations provide clear requirements. Updates that affect those requirements are type approval relevant. So quite straightforward. Vice versa, updates without effect to the corresponding regulations are not type approval relevant, even if the updates affect critical systems. The software update management system is basically a systematic approach to define organizational processes and procedures. The regulation on software update management system actually provides a framework for the automotive sector to put into place necessary processes for different domains. And those are the traceability and consistency of approved systems. So this means the recording of the hardware and software versions relevant for a vehicle type, verifying that the software and the component is what it should be, etc. As mentioned, we have requirements on a unique identification of updated software, but also on the initial software. So one have to already consider the regulation during the initial development, not only during updates. We have probably this is the most important part of the regulation, request regarding processes to assess if software updates are type approval relevant. We have requirements for processes to systematically identify dependencies and the compatibility interdependencies. So this means on one side interdependencies between ECUs, but also between functions and features implemented on one ECU. Everything, especially with regard to software updates. And yeah, for the compatibility, it's also between those components, but also to verify if the vehicle is compatible with the update at all. There are few requirements for security, example, to protect authenticity and integrity of software updates. We have requirements to ensure a safe state and safe driving, and yeah, that yeah, updates are not interrupting the safe state. And yeah. At the end, all those processes must be documented, and the documentation must be shared with the approved authorities. And in case of suppliers, these suppliers have to provide information to the OEMs to support the process. The regulation requires a process to systematically assess and identify and record a software update's effect any type approval. And here I'd like to show you exemplary what have to be done during different phases, simply in a simplified way. So during development, one already have to check if the software update is relevant for type approval. And if so, one have to prepare the documentation and manage metadata, for example, the RxS-Win. One have also to identify and track approval relevant requirements to at the end get every required documentation ready to request a type approval in time. But also on the post-production, every single software update development is the same V. So you have to follow all those steps also for every single update. The goal of the regulation is to establish and strengthen the software development and release processes of software changes. Now I'd like to explain what the RxS-Win. So the RxS-Win can be basically considered as an abbreviation, and it's a unique identifier. And this identifier is defined and managed by the vehicle manufacturers. This identifier represents a dedicated type approval of a vehicle or system. So in this, at the bottom of this slide, I provide 3 examples for 3 different regulations on the braking system, on the emission system, and steering system. And those are the regulations are 13, 24, and 79. And the X actually is replacing this RxS-Win. Staying with those 3 systems, here's an example how it could be implemented, divided over different ECUs. So as you can see, ECU1 is only required for the braking system, or only implements the braking system, while the 2 others are overlapping with other regulations, with other systems, but as well regulations. As each regulation may affect the type approval of one system, but you can see also that the regulation may affect several ECUs. So the braking system in this case affects ECU 1, 2, and 3. The other way around, ECU 3 is affected by all 3 regulations. So for type approval relevant updates, but only if it's type approval relevant, a new RxS-Win must be ordered and released by the authorities. So even if the OEM is managing and providing those numbers, they must be, let's say, registered. Currently, there are no dedicated requirements on the storage location, but on the other side, there are requirements that the number must be protected from unauthorized manipulation and that it must be easily readable in a standardized way, at least by the UDB port. The UNECE regulation is addressing the responsibility of the OEMs. So there is no, beside one, there is actually no other requirement to the suppliers. It's not even addressing the suppliers directly, but the regulation says that suppliers should provide relevant information to the OEMs to enable the OEMs to check if regulations are affected by the updates. As Ascrip is working in the domain of automotive sector and security since many years, we have a lot of contacts and projects with different suppliers in the world and with different OEMs. We can already observe that requirements are somehow passed through and delegated from the OEMs to the supplier. This happens by requirements. This happens by specific questions and pitches and RFQs. For example, dedicated informations are requested. Questions regarding the processes arise to the suppliers to make processes sometimes even transparent, to explain the processes. So this is what we already observe. Okay. Let's take a closer look on over-the-air updates. As mentioned before, the regulation applies to vehicle permitting software update, and this means wired updates and over-the-air updates as well. So everything what we have heard till here applies to both approaches. But for over-the-air updates, the regulation provides additional requirements, and these are, for example, an over-the-air and approaches where the update is released over the air, the manufacturer have to demonstrate how failed and interrupted updates are handled. As for example, when you currently go for an update, the vehicle must be updated by a mechanic in a workbench. And in case of failure, the mechanic could either replace the part, he can try reflashing, or he can just say, we have to double check something and ensure that the vehicle is not driven. But now somehow the vehicle has to ensure that in case of safety critical updates, a safe state is provided. And in case of some failed interruptions, this must be handled. So either prevent driving at all, retrying to self-heal, retrying to going back to a previous version of the software. As already mentioned on one of the other slides, the requirement, and this is dedicated for over-the-air updates, that the vehicle must ensure that there is sufficient power to execute the update safely, so to not abort the updates due to missing power. But besides these technical requirements, there are also requirements to inform the users regarding new updates, regarding update completion, or if a mechanic is needed. This somehow is complementary probably to managing failed updates, as this is also already an approach, or indicates an approach that if an update fails, one could request a mechanic to fix the issue. At the end, all in all, has the goal that the vehicle must be capable of conducting the update. Let's consider an approach for over-the-air update now from a more technical perspective. I like to explain here. So here in this orange box, you can see a repository where suppliers can push and provide the updates to the OEMs, and the repository stores along with the update package itself documentation required for a type approval regarding the RxS VIN, mapping to the RxS VIN, and the type approval itself. Based on this repository, the OEM can prepare the actual update. This means he could define in which order ECUs have to be updated. He can define or he could convert the format if required. Maybe the OEM prefers a different format, or there's some gateway in between. So creating a container of the update, something like this. So the OEM can manage and handle all those provided artifacts dedicated to vehicles. This is an all integration. At the end, the OEM has to sign the update, and probably, if he likes to ensure privacy or to keep the confidentiality of the content, he can encrypt it. This is optionally. This is especially not requested by the regulation, but signing is probably an approach for the other requirements. So after the packet is created, as usually in most domains, and especially in the automotive domain, the QM is involved to validate that everything is done correctly. Those packages that are ready for release are stored now in a download package repository. On the other side, we have the vehicle manifest. This manifest is mirroring the fleet. This means here one can track which hardware version, which software version are installed in which vehicle. And this provides more or less something like a digital twin for the OEM. So based on this, the OEM can now create campaigns, update campaigns. This means the OEM is able to provide some definitions, like in which order the update should be enrolled. It's usually not all devices are updated at the same time to distribute the balance on the server side, but also for purpose of failure tracing. So one could just start with, for example, 1,000 or 10,000 vehicles to update and could check how high the failure ratio is in feed for the updates. And if everything went well, one could scale up the rollout, and otherwise maybe stop or investigate what is going wrong. Technically wise, we have a management server who is managing and notifying the vehicles, and a counterpart on the vehicle side. So after the package is downloaded, the digital signature is verified, and if the package was previously encrypted, it is decrypted and provided to a flash manager inside of the vehicle. This flash manager could be either a centralized way who is managing everything. This could be a flash manager responsible for a specific domain, and several flash managers are involved in the vehicle. Only one domain is updatable. This depends on the approach. It could be even a flash manager for a specific device, for example, like a vehicle computer. And this flash manager now has to ensure all the requirements. So the flash manager is here to ensure that the preconditions are met. So, for example, that the vehicle is not driving when updating the braking system, etc. So, even when we are a security company, we didn't talk that much about security regarding this regulation, but this is for purpose because the regulation also just covers security, let's say, somehow briefly and on a higher level. So I've quoted some of those requirements, at least in some parts, and it always says that the update process, the update procedure, the update package, the verification and validation of software must be protected, appropriate, or reasonably. So in terms of requirements, those words are quite soft. The question now is, what is reasonably? And here, the counterpart of the regulation R155 on cybersecurity comes into place. As source regulation provides a framework to systematically identify risk and damage scenarios, to systematically identify potential attack paths, to rate the risk, and at the end to accept or mitigate the risk. So basically, the regulation on CSMS provides tooling to estimate what is reasonably and what is not. So beside the WAN regulation 155, there is the ISO 24089. Maybe some of you already come across this ISO, are aware of this ISO. And this ISO shows support to fulfill the related regulations. This regulation will provide specific requirements for system and infrastructure for software updates during development, during and after development, for the development of the software packages themselves, for the traceability and development of updates, and so on. We do not know which requirements will be there at the end finally, as the ISO is currently in committee draft and is expected to be released by end of next year. However, we already have some details about the content of the ISO, as we are contributing with reviews and feedback as security expert to the delegations. So for sake of completeness, I like to come back to the regulation R155. And together with our partner KPMG, we have made a survey on the automotive companies, and we're already observing that the interference between CSMS and SAMS is integrated by almost half of the OEMs together, that both systems are integrated into each other's. And as mentioned before, the SAMS makes actually cybersecurity requirements, and the CSMS provide a framework to systematically evaluate the cybersecurity risk. On the other side, the CSMS can also benefit from SAMS, as it requests a vulnerability management and incident response. And for most vulnerabilities, software updates are already sufficient to fix those. Similar to the 24089, the UN Regulation 155 is accompanied by the ISO 21434, and this ISO is regarding road vehicles, cybersecurity engineering, and is expected to be released late this year. So, Moritz, now we have heard a lot about what SAMS is, but how to establish this system?
Yes, thanks, Thomas. And I think this is a good jumping off point for me to talk a little bit about how to implement such a management system and how to monitor the maturity that such a management system has. Thomas has talked a lot about the regulation, and you discussed, Thomas, that there are multiple levels and multiple things, objectives that are covered in the regulation in the UN R156. There is the software update management system, and then there is the technical implementation on the vehicle side and on the, let's say, the backend side. So what you see here is a roadmap that we've derived out of the many projects that we've done in the space of building up a software update management system and or a cybersecurity management system, and then applying all of these new processes, activities, methodologies to a technical implementation on the vehicle and the connected systems. And I want to focus specifically on the left-hand part, which is our 8-step implementation roadmap for cybersecurity and software update management systems. So we believe, or when we go into an engagement with a customer, new organization, this is what we bring with us, this roadmap, and it's helping to navigate the space, similar to Kotta's 8-step change management process. So we believe that all steps need to be taken care of, but of course, every organization will bring their own status quo, their own context, their own competencies, their own foundation. So maybe not every step will follow the same order that we have here, and for sure there will be a different emphasis on different steps. But we found it really helpful to navigate the space, to have a common thread and never lose sight of the goal of reaching a certifiable, in this case today, that we're talking about software update management system. So let me talk a little bit about these 8 steps. So we group them in 3 phases that you see on the slide: preparation, implementation, and commissioning. And the preparation step is already, this one is quite important in our view. So there are 2 steps here: the scoping, stock taking, and planning. So what is this about? So exactly what Thomas just showed you about the survey, where we saw that around half of the surveyed automotive companies, actually OEMs and suppliers alike, integrate CSMS with software update management systems. So we believe it makes sense in a scoping step to have a clear picture of what needs to be achieved. Should this be one integrated management system? Should they run separately? What about your ISMS? What about your quality management system? So what about these existing management systems that you already have in place? Are there some like constraints or boundary conditions of building this up? And this would feed then into a stock taking and planning step where you can do a proper analysis of the status quo and identify relevant foundations. So we believe, or we actually observe, that in most organizations we go into, even if the initial feeling is, oh, we don't have anything, when we start asking questions and we look left and right, there are often pieces available for a management system that can be leveraged to get there so much faster without reinventing the wheel. So this is also an essential step. And then what follows is the implementation phase, and it covers at least these 4 dimensions or steps that we have here. So first of all, in the step 3, the organization, of course, this is all about getting the commitment from the leadership to make sure they're on board. Otherwise, a management system will not be really effective and become and fulfill its objectives. This is followed by, of course, creating relevant policies, establishing initial roles, a governance unit, for example, processes, controls, and so on. These then are related also to risks and opportunities, specifically in the interaction of, I think, with cybersecurity. This is particularly clear that large cybersecurity risks would need to be then aggregated and captured and potentially put on a corporate risk management board. And similar for the software update management system. So are there any big blockers? How far has the rollout gone on establishing consistent objectives across the organization and so on? And so far, it's more or less about the processes and controls and documentation. And this is, of course, a crucial framework for a management system, but the management system lives and fails by also looking at the people and the tool that have to implement this and live the management system and the tools they're given to use it. So this is step 5, looking at sufficient resources, providing awareness, so running awareness campaigns within the organization so everyone understands what is their role or what's their contribution to the software update management system, how does it contribute to the larger picture, what are their requirements, responsibilities, what kind of trainings could they get to get the adequate competence, what tools are they supported with, especially in the software update management system. I believe that proper tooling around configuration management, asset management, versioning is absolutely crucial. Then the ecosystem orchestration. So we believe if these steps are taken care of, then in step 6, it's time to look outward, to look towards your own supply chain, to look to your customers, be it manufacturers or be it, let's say, approval authorities for the type approval, to look at the ecosystem. Who else needs to contribute this? Who else needs to be part of this whole software update management system, the configuration and asset management system, and to make clear what are their responsibilities and also their capabilities. When all of this is taken care of, we typically enter a third and final phase. This is the commissioning. And here in step 7, this is also one which I really want to emphasize and highlight. This is the handover, because so far the establishment of the software update management system typically runs in a project organization. And now there needs to be a handover to the line management, to the line organization, and to operationalize the management system. And what we see is highly effective here is to do a coaching approach, a guided piloting approach with, let's say, shadowing and reverse shadowing of the project organization, so that the project organization is still embedded in the first pilot projects to get the line organization up and running. Once this is successfully completed, the final stage would be to set up a proper monitoring and evaluation system to identify what measurements need to be taken to set down, define the KPIs, to execute the first process audits and assessments, and then do an adequacy and performance analysis. And I think this step, the next step number 8 and step number 2, the stock taking and planning, they're quite similar. And in fact, this is what I want to show you on the next slide. What a typical approach that we also bring in when we come and support an organization. We see that there is a wide range of different approaches. So some customers have a very clear picture on their own, like what the project structure is and or whatnot, and we just follow along. But in some cases, they're expecting a proposal from us. And this is what I want to show you here, that you have not only in the beginning in the step 2 and towards the end in step 8 some monitoring of the progress and the maturity, but that you can do it continuously. So this is one way we like actually to work with clients, because it quickly turns pieces built up in the management system into results and to actual collecting evidence. So what happens here is that on the top left, we start with an initial stock taking, so doing this status quo analysis and looking at what's available and what the gaps are. And this we feed into our Proof monitor Proof dashboard. So Proof is our integrated automotive maturity model that captures regulations like the UNR 155 and the UNR 156, but also the ISO standards that Thomas just mentioned. So you see you get a clear tracing what the gaps are and where nothing needs to be done. So you can really focus on what needs to be done. This feeds into, also on the left-hand side, a backlog for SUMS and or CSMS. And what we then do is we take the 8-step roadmap that I've discussed just before in the previous slide, and we run a mini version of that for one dedicated part of the management system. So we would pick one domain or one major feature, one major requirement from this management system, and we run it through the whole 8-step roadmap, which we call a program increment, so in typical agile fashion. And the nice benefit about this is after a program increment, which can be done fairly short, we can immediately enter this guided piloting and this handover that I just mentioned to you, and immediately learn. So if things don't work, they get feeded back to the Proof monitor. So we can do a quick delta analysis, or integrate some feedback from the line organization, from the pilot project, that something is not working as expected. And this can update the Proof monitor with the progress and maturity. If things work, however, we can actually say, okay, make a check mark here and start collecting, which you see on the lower right-hand side then, and start collecting the evidence for the type approval or for your customers, whatever is needed to get, let's say, certification or satisfy your customer. So you immediately start applying this. And we see this as a big benefit, especially looking at the timelines for these management systems and when they're expected to be rolled out in Japan and the EU with the 2022 and 2024 deadline, so that this is a clear benefit. Another thing of this approach, which we see on the bottom left, because the topic of a management system is so diverse and it needs to involve so many stakeholders, it can easily grow to a large complexity. And what we see as a benefit here of focusing in each program increment on a specific domain is that we can pick for each program increment the right expert. So not everyone of the whole program, not all stakeholders have to be involved with the same intensity over the whole program, but we have what we typically establish then as a joint expert pool between you and us, where we pull the dedicated experts for, let's say, how to deal with the supply chain and have these negotiations done properly. And we pull a dedicated expert for this topic, and the next program increment, it's different people. So this also helps keep down effort or overhead for everyone else. And I've spoken a lot about what we put into this integrated automotive maturity model. So maybe one more slide that I can show you before we go to the question period. And I already see that a couple of questions are coming in. Is what we have in this monitor, in this maturity model, and a little bit of an outlook. So what's available right now is we have the UNR 155 and the UNR 156. So if you run separate programs or joint programs, integrated programs, like Thomas showed from our survey, those results, you can use the same maturity model to measure your organization. We also have, of course, the ISO SAE 21434, which is supporting implementations of the 155. We also have the VDA ACSMS RED volume and the JASPA Cybersecurity Quality Assurance Guideline already available now. And looking further to the right, there is a lot coming up. Timelines are not exactly fixed. It depends sometimes on publications of the individual standards. Some are still in draft status. It also depends on customers' priorities. So we're closely listening. If a couple of customers or one of you mentions that something is especially important to you, we can pull it up and adjust the roadmap. But I want to highlight a couple of things that, especially for the software update management system, I think are quite interesting. So looking in the middle column, you see the KBA Anforderungskatalog. So this is the, let's say, type approval certification questionnaire from the German approval authority, the Kraftfahrt-Bundesamt. And they have an integrated questionnaire or requirements catalog for CSMS and SUMS. So we're looking at this right now, analyzing it and integrating it to the framework. So fairly soon, when you use this framework and this maturity model, you will be able to get, with one set of questions, evaluations on how you do, what your progress is, your maturity is to directly UNR 156, but also this, for example, this questionnaire. Looking at the third column on the right-hand side, you will also note that there is the ISO 2489 that Thomas mentioned, the ISO norm coming up for software update engineering. And the first public draft, the DIS, is expected in Q4, and we definitely have it on our roadmap to integrate it also into this framework. Like some others, to close it off, just one more, we're also looking at regional things, for example, the China ICD type approval, to ensure that if and what kind of cybersecurity and software update requirements are in there, that we integrated as meaningful. This is what I wanted to share about. I think the topic of SUMS and 2489 goes far beyond what a single webinar can cover. So I'm really looking forward to your questions, but also to follow-up contacts. Please reach out to Thomas and me also after the webinar. Go to our webpage, write us an email, send us a message, and we're eager to get in touch with you.